Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Nico. I'm the Georgia coordinator for the Georgia Assembly. All 50 states are in session. And when I say 50 states, I'm talking about the states of the Union. And this is where we, the people, do business. So I'm going to attach more information about that at the bottom of this video with links and descriptions. But this video is actually going to go more in depth with exemptions and with laws pertaining to masking, PCR tests, jabs. And everybody is so used to their whole life, in all aspects, work, school, at home, just taking orders, just doing what they're told, not asking many questions. But that's not how the world is supposed to work. And by no means are you supposed to do what you're told without question. It's each and every one of our duties, our obligations, to ask questions, to hold people accountable, to hold ourselves accountable, and make sure that at all times we're doing our due diligence in every aspect of life. With regards to, affairs, money, which is really debt. We'll get into that later. With regards to, laws, exemptions, and rights, and what it means in the relationship between people and government. The first thing people need to realize is the operation of law. There's the Creator, and that's whatever the Creator is to you. In the universal law world, it's nature, and nature's God. Right? We hear about it in the Declaration of Independence. We hear about it all over. So, God, nature, the Creator, whatever they are to you, that's at the top, right? So, nature, God, the Creator, created the creation. And that's all living things, right? Land and soil, right? Nature, the waters, the rivers, the lakes, the animals, the people, right? The birds, reptiles, right? Everything that walks, everything that crawls, everything that breathes, everything that speaks, everything that grows, everything. Creation. Now the creation created churches, governments, schools, right? Hospitals, institutions. Whatever those creations are, they're underneath those who created it. I apologize for that. There's a lot of people that walk around on the beach here just trying to sell, their own knickknacks. They've been displaced and, they lost their jobs and their homes from all these military-industrial complexes and all these corporations coming and plundering and pillaging. And they've been displaced and pushed into foreign lands to go do the same thing, to take the other people's jobs, to take the other people's land, to take the other people's homes. And it's all by design. It's by design to keep that wheel turning, to keep people divided and confused and poor and distracted. Anyways, so operation of law, Creator, creation, and then whatever the creation creates is underneath that. Then you know what? Whatever those institutions, whatever those hospitals, those governments, right? Those doctors, those physicians, whatever they create is underneath that. And this is operation of law. So at all times, there's the Creator and then the creation. So nothing is higher than the creation except for the Creator. And the Creator's not going to tell you what to do. Because the Creator gave you three things. Three things. See, we all have the right to self-govern. And what that means is that we all have our own legislative branch, right? We have logic, right? That's how we legislate, right? We can speak. We can have facial expressions, right? We have emotions and feelings. And all that together is our logic. That's how we either speak or, we use our hands. Or we use our eyes, right? We make eye contact, we move. That's our logic, right? So that's how we legislate. Then we have our executive branch, right? Free will. Using your free will, you decide how you want to execute how you want to execute those thoughts and that logic and that reasoning, emotions and those feelings and those perspectives and those experiences. You decide how you want to execute that through your own executive branch. And that's your free will. We have conscience. And this is our judicial branch. This is where we weigh options and measures and facts and all those logic and reasoning and emotions and feelings, right? Everything else. That's how when we take into account what we see. When we see others' facial expressions and their emotions and their thoughts and their ideas and their voices and their mannerisms and demeanor. Well, we take all that in, right? Using our brain and using our conscience, right? Which is our connection to source, right? We take all that in and we make a decision. We say, okay, does this make me feel comfortable? Does this scare me? Does this bother me? Does this anger me? Does this make me happy? And then we use that conscience, right, to decide. And then we legislate and we execute that free will. So we all are born with these. No one will ever have the right to live your life for you. No one will ever have the right to execute your conscience and to execute your logic and your reasoning, right? And to execute your free will. Because we are all our own beings. We're all independent individuals. We're all our own state. I am my own state. With respect to everyone around me, we are all separate states. And when we decide to do business together, it's called intercourse. So, that's called international business. International intercourse. International laws have maxims. They have universal norms, peremptory norms, things that are common principles, common sense for the common situation, for the common man and woman. We don't need anybody to decide for us anything. We don't need anyone to tell us anything. What we need to do is respect others' free will, conscience, and free will, conscience, and logic. So, with respect to anything created by man or by mankind, those require the consent of the governed because they're created by another. So if it wasn't created by me or by you, we're not bound to follow. We're not obliged. No one can require us to do anything. No one can force us to learn a certain subject. No one can force us to get a certain job. No one can force us to have a certain. No one can force us to take a certain test. No one can force you not to believe. This requires consent. They can tell you their feelings, or their thoughts, what they believe, or what they've been told. They can't coerce you. They can't threaten you. They can't force you. They can't manipulate you. Because that's called a trespass. We're all born with equal rights under the law. It's very simple. As long as you honor my rights and my exemptions, and you don't trespass on my rights, my exemptions, or my property, we're 1,000% good, 1,000% equal. But it's up to me to do the same. So, what's going on nowadays? Due to ignorance and mass confusion and mass propaganda and mass manipulation, everyone's confused. People don't know about operational law. People don't know about rights. People don't know about exemptions. People don't know about consent. People don't know about the common law, about common sense, about common principles. People don't know who they are. Because for a long communities, to our health, to our families, to our personalities, to our mental, to our physical, to our emotional, to our psychological, and it's all by design. Why? Remember what I said about the operation of law. So if I create something which is underneath me, and I trick everybody into thinking that they are underneath that I created, that would make me their creator. It's that simple. All these families and all these billionaires, and all these tricksters and liars and thieves and murderers, they're all evil. And all they want to do is they want to play creator. Because when you play creator, guess what? You have slaves. You have servants. You have people that work for you, that make money for you, that labor for you, that sweat, die, fight, and argue for you. And it's all by design. That's why the poisoned food, that's why the poisoned water, that's why the terrible, horrible morals and ethics around us, that's why nothing makes sense. Because they want us distracted, they want us confused, they want us picking a side, they want us arguing with our neighbor or our family member that knows the truth, that sees the lies, that knows about operation, that respects others' rights and exemptions, that stands up for their own rights and exemptions. Because we are the ones that they're scared of. Because without their fear, without their propaganda, without their manipulation, they're nothing. They're just like each and every one of us. But with all those tools they use, they can create. They can live a life that they can dream of. They force us to give them everything while we fight for nothing. Is that simple? So, with regards to masks, jabs, PCR tests, remember, any and everything created by mankind requires the consent. Free consent. Without coercion, without duress, without threat, without manipulation of the individual. Because if there's no consent, it's involuntary servitude. And no one has the right to enslave us. It's a crime against humanity in each and every jurisdiction. So, most people have never read this in their life, and obviously that's by design. But if you go to the UN website, you look up the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you'll see right away the preamble, which is a preamble is like an insurance policy, but it's actually much higher than that. It's like actually called an indenture trust, and it gives you indemnity, which means protection always, for free. You don't have to pay for it. It's an expected and presumed and assumed protection that all that apply to that preamble are endowed with forever, the day they're born. So, whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace around the world. Whereas disregard and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind, and the advent of a world in which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief, and freedom from fear, and want has been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of the common people. No matter if you're dirty, if you're poor, if you're green, all people are equal under the law. Whereas it is essential that man is not to be compelled to have recourse or remedy as a last resort to rebellion against tyranny and oppression, that human rights should be protected by the rule of law, whereas it is essential to promote the development of friendly relations between nations, whereas the peoples of the United Nations have in the Charter reaffirmed their faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, social progress, and better standards of life and larger freedom. Whereas member states have pledged themselves to achieve cooperation with the United Nations, the promotion of universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms. Whereas common understanding of these rights and freedoms is of the greatest importance for the full realization of this pledge. Y'all noticed it said charter. Remember, when the creation, right, when the people get together, they form something, they charter that corporation, or they charter that declaration, or they charter that constitution as a group of people. So what is government? That's a charter, right? What's a constitution, right? That's a charter, right? Everything's created by the creation. That's why it requires the consent of all. Because I might charter something, you might disagree with it entirely. That's your right, and that's up to you, and you can't do nothing about it. As long as you don't trespass on my rights, I don't trespass on yours, good to go. And your property and your exemptions are also your rights. So, General Assembly proclaims the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and nations, to the end that every individual and every organized society, keeping this declaration constantly in mind, shall strive by teaching and education to promote respect for these rights and freedoms, and by progressive measures, national and international, to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance, both among the peoples of member states themselves and among the peoples of territories under their jurisdiction. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. First sentence. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act toward one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political, or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional, or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing, or under any limitation of sovereignty. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the security of the person. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. All are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration and against any incitement to such discrimination. Everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted him by the Constitution or by law. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. Everyone is entitled to full equality to a fair and public hearing by an independent, impartial tribunal in the determination of his rights and obligations, and any criminal charge against him. Rights are for the public, obligations, right, would be for the servant providing service to the public, trying to trespass on their rights. Everyone charged with a penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty according to law in a public trial, at which he has had all the guarantees necessary for his defense. No one shall be held guilty of any penal offense on account of any act or omission which did not constitute a penal offense under national or international law at the time when it was committed, nor shall a heavier penalty be imposed than the one that was applicable at the time the penal offense was committed. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, or correspondence, or to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. Everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Everyone has the right to leave any country, including their own, and to return to their country. Everyone has the right to seek to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. This right may not be invoked in the case of prosecutions genuinely arising from non-political crimes or from acts contrary to the purposes of and principles of the United Nations. Everyone has the right to a nationality. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality or denied the right to change his nationality. Men and women of full age, without limitation, to race, nationality, or religion, have the right to marry and to found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage, during marriage, and at its dissolution. Marriage shall be entered into only with the free and full consent of the intended spouses. The family is the natural and fundamental root unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state. Everyone has the right to own property alone as well as in association with others. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. Your breath, your body, your life, your car, your private property. Same. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his belief, and freedom either alone, be the only one that had this belief, this thought, would still be 100% free to do it by yourself as long as you don't trespass on it. Either alone or in community, with others and in public or private, to manifest to his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information, ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Everyone has the right of freedom of peaceful assembly and association. No one may be compelled to belong to an association. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of his country, directly or through freely chosen representatives. Everyone has the right to equal access to public service in this country. The will of the people shall be the basis, and the will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of the government. The will of the people. This will shall be expressed in periodic and general elections, and shall be by universal and equal suffrage, and shall be held by secret vote, or by equivalent free voting procedures. Everyone as a member of society has the right to social security and is entitled to realization through national effort and international cooperation in accordance with the organizational resources of each state of the economic, social, and cultural rights indispensable for his activity and the free development of his personality. Everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, just and favorable conditions of work, and protections against them. Anyone without any discrimination has the right to pay for equal work. Everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for himself and his family an existence worthy of living, supplemented if necessary by other means of social persecution. Everyone has the right to form and to join trade unions, protection of his interests. Everyone has the right to rest and leisure, including reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay. Everyone has the right to stand well-being of himself and his family, including food, clothes, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. Motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. All children in or out of wedlock shall enjoy the same social protection. Everyone has the right to education. Education shall be free, at least in the elementary and fundamental stages. Elementary education shall be compulsory. Technical and professional education shall be generally available, and higher education shall be equally accessible to all of the basis of merit. Education shall be directed in the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. Those two things. Nothing about public health. Fundamental freedoms, human rights. Shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations, racial or religious groups, and shall further the activities of the United Nations for the maintenance of peace, the standing of dividing, splitting up into groups. Nothing. That's the opposite of freedom. It's the opposite of brotherhood. It's the opposite of what people do. It's where people are here. All the other labels are down here, where some dumbass created them. Parents have the prior right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children. Everyone has the right to freely participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, to share in scientific advancement and its benefits. Everyone has the right to protection of moral and material interests resulting from any scientific, literary, or artistic production of which he is the author. Everyone is entitled to a social and international order, which the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration can be fully realized. Everyone has duties to the community, which alone the free and full development of his personality is possible. In the exercise of his rights and freedoms, everyone shall be subject only to such limitations as are determined by law, solely for the purpose of securing due recognition, respect for the rights, freedoms of others, and of meeting the just requirements of morality, public order, and the general welfare in a democratic society. These rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. Nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as applying for any state, group, or person
any right to engage in any activity or to perform any act aimed at the destruction of any rights and freedoms set here and we said the only reason institutions and governments, and schools, and anything else, United Nations, assemblies, only reason they exist is the protection of your freedoms and your rights. That's it. This is universal. And anything else that's contrary to that is null and void. You don't have to listen to people because they're ignorant to the truth, right? They're uninformed or uneducated about the truth. The truth of the matter is, you can tell me whatever you want. You have that right. But if I don't believe in it, if I don't choose to agree with it, if my conscience and my logic and my free will is telling me that that's wrong for me or for both of us, I have the right to refuse because I don't consent to it. And if you force me with coercion, threat, duress, with harm, with kidnapping, you will be liable. And how do they do this? They put it on our uneducated, uninformed neighbors who are just listening to their boss, right? Not realizing that their actual boss is the people. And it's that simple. So, that was the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is what I wrote because I'm flying to Cyprus in 2 days, and they're trying to tell me that I'm required, it's mandatory, that I take a COVID swab. Where in that declaration did it say anything about what I must do? It's not true, and it requires consent. And if I don't consent to it, it's unlawful. If it's unlawful, it's null and void with respect to me. Now, if everyone else wants to acquiesce, which means silently, right, go with what they're saying, that's their choice. But that's not what's the right thing, because our duty is to respect each other's rights and exemptions, freedoms. Duty is not to follow orders. Because you could be following orders from a rapist, a tyrant, liar, someone who literally means you nothing but harm. How do you get away from following unlawful orders? You stand on your rights and your freedoms. It's that simple. And if someone does something with the detriment to your rights and to your freedoms, after you're standing up and explaining that to them, they will be held liable. Who is they? The person, right? The man or woman, right? The people acting in that capacity. The people, right, who are equal with us, who decided to take a job down here and somehow be our creator. Somehow tell us how to think. Tell us how to act. Not how operation of law works. That's why the customer is always right. Because the customer doesn't work for the company. The customer technically owns all companies. Because the customer is one of the people. Now, as one of the people, you don't trespass on others' rights and freedoms. So no, don't say something ignorant like, does that mean that the people could just come and take whatever they want? Because no, that's not what anybody's saying. Respect everybody's rights and exemptions. That's it. That's it. That's universal law. So this is what I wrote, and I attached Sky Express, the General Secretariat for Civil Protections, the Civil Rights Protection Center, International Court of Justice, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, and the U.S. Embassy. I'm here in the Raceway. That's why I attached all these people. So, if anyone is going to force me to do something against my free will, against my logic, and against my conscience, and against my rights and exemptions, I need a name and a signature from that man or woman their private capacity, telling me where, when, and how they got permission to administrate my property without right. This goes against every treaty, declaration, constitution known to mankind. I need a name, and a signature, so I know who to sue for deprivation of rights under color of law. CDC, Eleftherios Venizelos, and any offices are private entities under corporate charter by the people, of the people, and for the people, and by operation of law, since they are created by mankind and for mankind, they at all times require the consent of mankind. This is how we keep tyrants, rapists, murderers, and pirates from coming in and destroying a nation and all its resources. My neighbor and your neighbors, who are misinformed and less knowledgeable about law, jurisdictions, are the ones being forced to try and enforce these orders like they are a one-size-fits-all law. They are not. Orders require consent, free of coercion, duress, threat, harm. I have the right to self-determination. I have the right to bodily integrity. I have the right to self-autonomy. I have the right to self-ownership. I have the right to self-govern. I have the right to freely and this includes all forms of travel, by land, by sea, or by air, which are the three jurisdictions: law, land, air, water. I have the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I have the right to contract. I have the right not to contract. I'm not interested in contracting my biological property away, and I'm certainly not interested in paying to do so. That's involuntary servitude. Trespass, which is forcing someone, like a creator, into a jurisdiction that they don't belong in. Slavery and piracy. All of these are crimes against humanity by definition. This is completely lawful. These are all peremptory norms, which are fundamental principles of international law that are accepted by the international community of states, right? Every being. As a norm from which no derogations are permitted. These include crimes against humanity. I'm not going to ask if you have hepatitis A, or HIV, ADHD, or PTSD. I'm not going to ask anyone if you want to cut or change your privates, or change your gender, or if you want to jump around like a horse in your spare time. I'm not interested in knowing if they smoke or drink, or what they eat, what they do for recreation, or in their personal medical choices. That's their private life, their property, and that's between them, their creator. Spoke to a manager on the phone at Eleftherios Venizelos, which is the Greek airport. They sent me to the General Secretariat for Civil Protections for a letter of exemption to show the people as they in the capacity of an agent at the travel desk. I called multiple times and received no answer. There was no voicemail option. I'm attaching Sky Express, the General Secretariat for Civil Protections, the Civil Rights Protection Center, the International Court of Justice, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, and the U.S. Embassy. I am a New Yorker, not a U.S. citizen. Those are government employees. I'm a New Yorker, part of the creation. That's your nationality. Remember, everyone has the right to a nationality. A U.S. citizen is not a nationality. It's a citizenship. Texan, Georgian, Californian, these are nationalities. Rights and exemptions must be protected and guaranteed. foreign law. I stand under the public law published on the public record, not federal law. For federal agents, published on the Federal Registry, principles, and I am owed good faith and service, as well as all the constitutional guarantees and protections. I have attached a letter from my head of state and the International Declaration of Human Rights. Failure to respond resulted in this letter acting as lawful public notice of my exemption to both the polymerase chain reaction test and to masks. Silence is acquiescence. Notice to agents is notice to principals. Notice to principals is notice to agents. I already emailed all these people. They're not going to respond because they know I'm right and they're scared to get sued. They're not going to tell them no. They're not going to answer. They're hoping that their neighbor will be so uninformed and so brainwashed that they're still going to try and enforce something on me. And I'm up here, and that's down here. Because remember, this is how it works. If I get trespassed against, and I want to sue that corporation, it's not going to be the people I emailed that get sued. It's not going to be the managers that aren't there or the CEOs that are not there. The people acting as CBC or Sky Express at that moment will be the ones held liable. That's how simple it is. So you need to realize that doing what you're told is not a problem. It's your duty to question what you're told if it's detrimental or unlawful. And that goes for everybody. Because remember, we're all equal. That's why you'll notice I don't say labels. Labels is created by somebody. For people. That's it. For mankind. That's it. Simple. So, I provided them with that letter. And I also printed this. This is the Nuremburg Code. Most people don't know what the Nuremberg Code is, and that's very sad. But the Nuremberg Code was written after World War II. So the judgment by the War Crimes Tribunal at Nuremberg laid down 10 standards to which physicians must conform, carrying out experiments on human subjects in a new code that is now accepted worldwide. Worldwide. The judgment established a new standard of ethical medical behavior for the post-World War II human rights era. Amongst other requirements, there's more. This document enunciates the requirement of voluntary informed consent of the human subject. The principle of voluntary informed consent protects the rights of the individual to control his own body. That's bodily integrity, self-ownership, self-determination, self-governance. That's freedom. This code also recognizes that the risk must be weighed against the expected benefit, that unnecessary pain and suffering must be avoided. This code recognizes that doctors should avoid actions that injure human patients. The principles established by this code, medical practice, now have been extended in general codes of medical ethics. The Nuremberg Code, which came out in 1947. Permissible medical experiments. This is the first sentence. The great weight of the evidence before us to effect that certain types of medical experiments on human beings, kept with reasonably well-defined bounds, conform to the ethics of the medical professional generally. The protagonists of practice of human experimentation justify their views on the basis that experiment yields results for the good of society that are unprocurable by other methods or means of study. All agree, however, that certain basic principles must be observed to satisfy moral, ethical, and legal concepts. This is the first of the 10 standards. The voluntary consent. The voluntary. Not mandatory, not compulsory, not obligatory, not required, not mandated, not ordered, not told. The voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. This means that the person involved should have legal capacity to give consent, should be situated as able to exercise free power of choice without the intervention of any of force, fraud, deceit, duress, overreaching, or other ulterior form of restraint or coercion, and should have sufficient knowledge and comprehension of the elements of the subject matter involved to enable him to make an understanding right decision. This latter element requires that before the acceptance of the decision by the experimental subject, there should be made to him nature, duration, and purpose of the experiment, method in which by which it is to be conducted, all inconveniences and hazards reasonably to be expected, and the effects upon his health or person which may possibly come from his participation in the experiment. The duty and responsibility for ascertaining the quality of the consent rests upon each individual who directs, initiates, or engages the experiment. It is a personal duty and responsibility which may not be delegated to another with impunity. Just going to skip to actually, no, I'm not going to skip it. The experiment should be such as to yield fruitful results for the good of society, unprocurable by other methods or means of study, and not random and unnecessary in nature. The experiment should be so designed and based on the means of animal experimentation and a knowledge of the natural history of the disease or other problem under study that the anticipated results justify the performance of the experiment. The experiment should be conducted as to avoid all necessary physical and mental suffering and injury. That includes losing your business, losing your right to travel, losing your right to breathe. It's completely unlawful. Crimes against humanity. No experiment should be conducted where there is an a priori reason to believe that death or disabling injury will occur, except perhaps in those experiments where the experimental physicians also serve the subjects. The degree of risk to be taken should never exceed that determined by the humanitarian importance of the problem to be solved by the experiment. Proper preparation should be made and adequate facilities provided to protect the experimental subject and remote possibilities of injury, disability, and death. The experiment should be conducted only by scientifically qualified persons. The highest degree of skill and care should be required through all stages of the experiment, those who conduct or engage in the experiment. During the course of the experiment, human subject should be at liberty to terminate the experiment at any stage if he has probable cause to believe in the exercise of the good faith, superior skill, and careful judgment required of him that a continuation of the experiment is likely to result in injury, disability, or death to the experimental subject. That's the Nuremberg Code. The last thing I'm going to read to you guys, this is from the Journal of Clinical Investigation. Murderous medicine. Murderous medicine. Naomi Baumschlag documents the complicity of Nazi doctors and pharmaceutical companies in murderous medical experiments related to epidemic, further Jewish genocide. The primary purpose of the book, subtitled Nazi Doctors, Human Experimentation, and Typhus, is to explain how epidemic typhus served in the extermination of Jews. It shows how Nazi officials used typhus prevention as a convenient strategy to deceive inmates into believing they were being treated, when in fact they were being gassed. Jews were labeled disease carriers, and you can change the word Jews for unvaccinated, any other label that you were being brainwashed to say. Because remember, all people are equal. So the minute someone says that there's a differential and that they're not equal, that's an agenda. And it's that simple. There's no need to even speak to them. But we've been very indoctrinated, so listen up. Jews, remember, this goes for any label, were labeled disease carriers and a public health risk to justify the creation of ghettos. Containing typhus epidemics provided a rationale for ghettoization, delousing baths or disinfection. Substitute those for PCR tests, jabs, quarantine, lockdowns, mandatory measures. Delousing baths were camouflage for gas chambers. But ghettoization, of course, actually fueled rather than contained the epidemic. You could substitute that for lockdown. Lockdowns are bad for your health. Not breathing, not getting the sunlight, not getting the laughter, not getting the contact. This is what makes you sick. Being scared all the time, and sweating and shaking. This is very common sense. It's very simple. So ghettoization, of course, fueled rather than contained the epidemic. And this in turn reinforced the prevention strategy. German and Austrian doctors favored overcrowded and unsanitary conditions to permit the epidemic to flourish, killing as many people as possible. How many lines are there? Lines going into school, lines going into store, lines going into everywhere. Lines and lines and lines. You gotta stand outside a line now because they only allow 4 people in the store, but they'll allow a line of 400 people, all wearing masks, next to each other, who aren't speaking to each other and who are scared of each other. But you can't shop freely in the store. There's a capacity limit in there. If there was no capacity limit, there'd be no line, because people would get what they need and they'd get the hell out of it. They're creating these situations. It's the exact same story. Anyways, Baumschlag, a pediatrician at Georgetown University School of Medicine with a Master of Public Health degree, explains that she chose to focus on typhus because the disease was rampant and the epidemic was used as a weapon of mass destruction, with the silent complicity, right, acquiescence, of the International Committee of the Red Cross. You could substitute that for everybody. WHO, FDA, CDC, right? All these alphabet soup agencies who, remember, were created by the creation. And now they're trying to silently pass orders and put it off on our neighbors to enforce those orders when they know they're unlawful because they know they require consent. So they themselves aren't going to mandate any vaccines. They themselves aren't going to mandate any masks. It's unlawful. Completely unlawful. So, in an attempt to give her story more contemporary relevance, she categorizes the spread of typhus in ghettos and concentration camps as an exemplar of biological warfare. Baumschlag argues that doctors pressured Nazi officials to proceed swiftly to quarantine and ghettoization to further the eradication of the disease.
Not Typhus, but the Jews themselves. Free people. People whose land and resources they were pillaging and plundering and depopulating. This is about using medicine and public health for killing. Germany had two systems of occupational health and safety. One for the racially desirable and one for the racially inferior. Now you could put one for the vaccinated and one for the unvaccinated. One for the rich and one for the poor. When somebody gets on a Learjet, they don't wear a mask. They don't take no fucking PCR test. They just walk in and walk out. That's it. You know why? Because they know their rights and they will sue somebody. They're not going to let nobody trespass on their rights. And nobody should. Most of the ordinance protecting decent, healthy Germans, or vaccinated, right, were formalized by law. Many of the abuses suffered by racially inferiors, right, or unvaccinated, right, or unmasked, right, were perpetrated in a legal gray area, confused by the exigencies of war and the disregard for international human rights. These German physicians did not abide by medical public health ethics. Baumside concludes that we still face the challenge of educating doctors, healthcare workers, and researchers who have a conscience and a love for humankind. There is no medical science without a moral basis. Baumside is of course correct, as were the American judges at Nuremburg, who sat in the judgment of the Nazi doctors at the doctors' trial. A similar point can also be made about the humanitarian organizations, such as the ICRC, or WHO, or FDA, or CDC, or or any of these corporations now. Same thing, it's just a corporation doing humanitarian service. Don't matter what your name is. You're under charter of, formed by the people, to provide service to the people, for the people. Which tragically failed to report on and expose the true conditions of concentration camps. Nonetheless, those who continue to ponder Nazi medical atrocities and want to reflect on the moral failures of the Nazi doctors, pharmaceutical companies, and humanitarian organizations will find this book and history useful. With regards to the PCR test, guys, you go to the FDA website because they don't work. Revoked. Okay? Innova Medical Group recalls unauthorized SARS-CoV-2 antigen rapid qualitative test with risk of false negative test results. Another one. Risk of false results with the curative SARS-CoV-2 test for COVID. It's the PCR test. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration is alerting patients and healthcare providers of the risk of false results, particularly false negative results. The curative SARS-CoV-2 test. Why would we take any of these tests? They've been proven that they don't work, number one. Number two, they require consent. No one can force you to spend $40, $50, $60, $70, even if it's free. No one can force you to take one. Literally at the bottom, it says, important recommendations for healthcare providers. Be aware of the important information regarding the use of these tests, which is described in the test's authorized labeling. Collection of nasal swabs and specimens is limited to symptomatic individuals within 14 days of COVID-19 symptom onset. That's on their label. Because, like I said, they know they can't force you to do it. It's the neighbors who are informed, who are giving opinions and emotions and feelings, manipulation, coercion, deceit, lies, and fear. Using those tools to make us do the wrong thing. Taking a jab, taking these tests, covering our breath, closing our businesses, like spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars
individual freedoms and rights with respect to whatever type of organization they're employed by. So if it's the UN, they represent the United Nations, individual rights and freedoms. If it's the FDA, they're supposed to protect the food and drugs with respect to all of our rights and freedom. They're supposed to make sure that they're not detrimental to our health, that they're not being forced upon us. We have informed consent and that we know exactly what's in them and what they contain. I mean, everything that these people are supposed to be doing, they're doing the opposite. So it just begs the question, is it all by design, or are all the people in those offices now just ignorant, educated, and uninformed? And regardless, we don't need to get into it. We just need to all individually respect each other's rights and freedoms. That starts with respecting your own. So, I'm going to attach all these at the bottom video. And I'm going to post this on Sky Express Facebook so that they know that I created this video. Like I said, I'm going to take this home and talk to travel agencies when I go to fly on Tuesday. And if they give me any problems, it's unlawful, it's a crime, this is public notice on record, I will be taking them to court. I will win because it's already been written. It's called stare decisis. It's been decided. We don't need to get into it again. And this has been decided on many levels. And people hung for it back in home. Doctors, pharmaceutical companies, media, lots of people hung for doing the wrong thing and destroying their neighbor's home. You have a great day. Please start reading. Start reading your declarations. Start reading your constitutions. Start reading your treaties. Start realizing that there's creator, creation, and everything underneath requires the consent. You have a good day. Good luck. Hug each other, smile with each other, spread truth. Keep sharing information, keep standing up for each other. Inform our employees who don't know. Because remember, they're people too. They're just listening to the wrong boss. They're listening to the manager instead of listening to the real CEO, which is all of us.